lower third anymore.
SpecFicMedia.com presents Beyond the Wall, a Game of Thrones podcast. With hosts Christiana Ellis, Chooch Schubert, Vivid Muse, and Nuchtchas.
Hello, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to Season 6 of Beyond the Wall. Tonight we're discussing Episode 7 of Game of Thrones, titled The Broken Man, with no spoilers past the currently aired episodes. And as I just said in the recording, I'm Chooch, as always joined by Christiana Ellis.
Hello!
Nutty Nuchtchas.
Hello, everyone. Chooch, I'm glad I turned my mute off because you pointing to everybody in the pictures was the funniest thing tonight. Sorry, folks, it's all downhill from here.
Yeah, and Vivid Muse.
Hi!
Hey, baby. So we are back on Google Hangouts. It really treated us wrong last time, and this time, of course, it worked perfectly, except Hangout Toolbox still does not work, which is why I just held up an iPad with our logo, because I couldn't do the overlay. Let's see, this episode. So this was another pretty fast-forward, moving at light speed again episode. We visited a lot of ground. News bits. There was a confirmation that something we mentioned, I think, on episode 1, or maybe even the preview, that they were saying that the next seasons are going to be shorter, and it looks like there's confirmation that Nerdist had reposted a Vanity Fair article with an interview where one of the directors was saying, basically echoed what Benioff had said before, that it looks like after this season is complete, it looks like there are about 13 episodes of story left, which means the next season would be like, what was it, 6 episodes long?
One is seven and the other
seven
is 6.
episodes
I can't
long,
remember.
and the last one would be 6.
Right.
And those are going to be spaced out by like a year, so it's still like,
so
wow.
It's 2 seasons. It's still going to be a season 7 and season 8, or, right? Season 7 will have 7 episodes probably, and season 8 will have 6, and then, what the heck, guys?
Which means, yeah, so we're, episode 7 of season 6, we're just about done with this season, and we're just about done with the whole story as far as HBO is concerned.
Yeah, it feels kind of crazy to hear like that's all that's left. It's somehow
16
like
episodes.
Sort of the feeling of fast forward that we've had in many places this season just suddenly feels like oh yeah, we're really kind of almost there.
Yeah.
Am I the only one that feels like kind of Babylon 5 season 4? It's like, oh, hurry up, ending. And I kind of hope that we get more than just 13 episodes, but at the same time, I don't want it to be like Babylon 5 season 5 that you're like, oh crap, now what?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, 7 seasons is a nice long stretch for an HBO show.
Sure is.
And it's the original number of, we're supposed to have 7 books, and 7 seasons would have made sense. So, it makes sense-ish, but I'm not ready, you guys. I'm not ready to only have 16 episodes left.
Yeah.
Mike Macaulay in the Q&A just says, boo, presumably to being almost done with this show.
Either that or it's, boo, I'm here.
If I could pop in a quick news nugget, we have been actually already jonesing and missing each other since, I don't know, what is it, a week since Balticon? And so we're talking about doing 2 weeks. We're talking about doing some extra episodes, including one completely shame bell free spoiler episode in which we ask all the questions. Chooch will not be present. We will do warnings throughout the episode to get rid of people that don't want to know spoilers. But I've been wanting to be spoiled, so the lovely ladies are going to spoil the hell out of me, and I expect a lot of company in the chat because I know a lot of you guys want to know too, because you may not have kept up on the books. Mm-hmm. And then we're also we're talking about some other just different things to do and having the feed. For me, I feel like with allegedly we have 16 episodes left, so it feels like all the stuff we've kind of been saying we should do that. I'm kind of trying to actually get scheduled now or planned out now, so look for those kinds of things coming, and if you have any ideas for a special episode, let us know.
Yeah, it sounds like there's going to be a bunch of space to fill.
Sob. Yeah.
Any other newsiness, or do we want to jump in?
Mike says that I was right about it being about the story. Well, it was dual purpose, because you also startled us. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Chooch.
Nice. So this episode, I think I know it's definitely the first one this season. We had a cold open.
I know.
We meet Ian McShane. We have. I had to look up Septon Ray, wearing a 7-pointed star, and immediately reveal that Sandor Clegane is alive. Which my immediate reaction. I blurted out just, "Oh, fuck you, come on. We're going to play this game."
He did, too.
Really excited to see him, and I want to see what he does, but that was my gut reaction.
But you know
going to play these games.
Well, but, we've talked about this controversy. Oh, Nutty's dying. You broke her. Talk about broken man. You just broke our Nutty. But, I mean, we've been kind of talking about it before, about how we never really saw him die on screen and all that stuff. I thought it was a really interesting intro because it was, like you said, it was a cold intro, and it started out in the peaceful, green, summery Riverlands, and it's so beautiful and picturesque, and you just want to sit down and have a picnic, and they're building a church, and isn't it lovely, and it's just like, bam, there's the Hound. It was freaking majestic. I loved it.
I kind of guessed when I saw that they were building a church what was going to happen, just due to book stuff. But at the same time, this is another example of one of those things that was a little ambiguous and not fully confirmed in the books. It's like the clues were there, but not confirmed. But so to have it in the show, definitely be the Hound, is like, And so when I saw them building a church, I was like, oh, is this what they're doing? And then you see the one guy carrying the log, and I'm like, it is! Speaking of the cold open, though, I almost suggested that we do a cold open for our podcast tonight.
That would have been smart. I had the same thoughts. All I could think was, Stigger, it's Stigger, oh my God, and all of these arguments that I've had in the past, and I'm just like, I wanted to call up Alex Skinner and be like, oh my God, did you say this? Oh my God. But no. And I really want to say, they're not building a church. They're building a house. It's going to be white, and it's for him and Sansa. But no, we'll build that later.
I was going to say, if you knew that much, that's a damn spoiler.
No, that's not a spoiler. That's total fan fiction.
That's why I was glad I was slow on the trigger.
Yeah.
So like
Nutty messing with me.
At the end of our last episode, when we had said, so the name of the next episode is The Broken Man, and I said, oh, so it's going to be the Hound. And I think that was part of my gut reaction too. It's a bit on the nose.
See, when you said that, I wasn't sure if you actually knew something or if you were just kind of out of nowhere sort of.
It was just my first reaction.
That's funny. At the same time, though, your reaction, I think you're not the only person feeling that way a little bit this season, because for a show that sort of got a reputation for being willing to kill major characters, it's sure bringing a lot of them back.
Yep. I think it's one of those things of watch what you wish for or what you bitch about or something like that. I think that I mean it was come on, from the opening scene of the first book, White Walkers resurrected dead people, but it's like it's getting to really stack up at this point.
So we get through their interactions, we get a little bit of how did he get in this predicament, and I was curious, what would he say? Is he going to lie? And clearly he says the truth.
How many men did it take to cut you down?
Just one.
Oh. He must have been some kind of monster.
Oh! No, it cut off.
Oh, cliffhangering
It was
bastard.
all that, so he says, nope, it was a woman. Just plainly and simply.
Well, you know,
It was a woman.
it's interesting to talk about what's the Hound, you know, or should we even call him the Hound, or is he just Sandor Clegane now?
That's a very good point.
You know, there's a nuance there, but
Yeah.
certainly when the question I was going to ask was, what is his mental state? Because certainly to be just so forthright about that, just like there's no pretense about it at all, there's no need to feel like he has to qualify it. It definitely seems like he's not fully changed. Like we see his conversations with Ray over the course of the episode, and he's still expressing some skepticism, but it's clear that, like, I don't want to say like there's a spark that's gone out, because that's not quite right, but he definitely seems changed. Like there's there's a sense now that like something is different with him. It's hard to completely put our finger on it, and it's also that maybe is where he's at too, is he's trying to figure out what's different.
Right. Well, one thing that I thought was an interesting mirror was all that let's call him Sandor now, because he wasn't wearing the Hound helm either, and that's what Ray was calling him, I think. But I'm sorry, I got distracted. I saw Christiana go off, and I couldn't tell if it was a scary thing or a good thing. It was probably a Luna thing.
It was a silence my phone thing because I was getting a text message thing.
Oh, okay. So, but what I was going to say is that it was interesting to hear when Septon Ray was telling his story, and we should probably wait until we get to that scene. We're still talking about the opening, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So he mentions how he was just about dead when he found him, you know, scared the crap out of him, and so apparently he healed him, brought him back to health, and in return, apparently Sandor's doing this work.
Question about that.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily led to believe that anything supernatural happened. Certainly Sandor doesn't seem to think so.
Right.
But we also have to remember what Thoros said about Beric Dondarrion, is that like he kind of just did the ritual he's always done. It never worked before, and then it just suddenly worked. Whereas now we have a Septon who was preparing to do the last rites on him.
Oh, so you think that Septon Ray may have resurrected him?
I don't know.
On
I'm just
accident.
asking the question, do we think that it's possible? Because he was in pretty rough shape, and, you know, the Septon's whole little speech was about how you looked like you had been dead for days. There were bugs all over you.
Yep. And
Well, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to agree with you. I think that it's one of those things, it's like, it goes to what we've been talking a lot about. It's because we see evidence of magic with the red god, the Lord of Light. Does that mean that that is the correct Lord, or does it mean that there is magic out there that his followers have been able to tap into? And if it is theoretically possible that Septon Ray tapped into that, then it would be more along the lines of magic is just returning to the world, and people are being able to tap into it, and they are giving it meaning where it may not exactly be something.
Well, I mean, it jumps. I guess it's technically in that scene where the Septon is telling him about finding him, but what he's saying about it is like, I don't pretend to know what the will of the gods is, but he actually goes on and gives the whole little speeches. Maybe it's the seven. Maybe it's the old ones. Maybe it's the Lord of the Light. Maybe they're all the same damn thing.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And
Which
then
I grabbed a clip of.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm not a devout man, obviously. 7 gods, round gods, 3 gods, it's all the same.
That was Davos from episode 2.
Yes.
He gives almost the exact same, but then it was, okay.
Oh, there's plenty of pious sons of bitches who think they know the word of God or gods. I don't. I don't even know their real names. Maybe it is the 7, or maybe it's the old gods. Or maybe it's the Lord of Light. Or maybe they're all the same fucking thing. I don't know. What matters, I believe, is that there's something greater than us. And whatever it is, it's got plans for Sandor Clegane.
God, I just love his voice.
You know who I am?
Yeah, he's great. Well, that's also like obviously a reveal that I mean it really doesn't have any plot impact. It's because all of these scenes between him and Sandor are all about establishing, you know, where Sandor is mentally and emotionally now, and also giving him a new direction to go in, which is not necessarily the direction that Ray here is advocating, because they have their later discussion about that. But I was saying this to you guys earlier, just before we kind of started, that that I thought, you know, Ian McShane, obviously he's a great actor, and so when they announced the casting, but saying he was only going to be in one episode, I'm thinking, well, he's enough of a name that it seems like you wouldn't pick him for just, you know, Sparrow number 3. So my first guess actually was that he was going to have some role in like the Tower of Joy flashback or something like that. But that was weeks ago when it was just a vague speculation. But the point is that for a character that's only going to be in one episode, but who nonetheless has to carry a lot of weight, dramatically speaking, in the sense of both reintroducing that the Hound is not dead and explaining why or how, and then also giving him his new sort of emotional mission. You need someone who's going to be able to have the appropriate gravitas for that, and I thought they cast Ian McShane very well.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was an interesting parallel between the Hound and Septon Ray's relationship and Arya and Jaqen H'ghar's relationship, because, you know, they both kind of came to, in my opinion, whatever happened with the Hound resurrection or near death or whatever, he is not wearing the helm. He is not fighting. He's not beating anyone. He's just kind of hanging out there. And it's almost like he doesn't have a direction. And I felt like he was really, really absorbing the things that Septon Ray was saying and really, really listening. And I think that's how it was with Arya up until, you know, recent events, and with Jaqen, and it's almost like challenging who they are and deciding who they want to be in the future, because they realize that they are at the point, they're at a decision point. And it's interesting to see where both of them are going, and I'm really interested to see how the rest of this plays out with the Hound.
Yeah. Are we going ahead and talking about the rest of the Hound?
Yeah, I think we will. I think we will. From this initial scene, the two questions that popped into my head is, one, well, Sandor is saying, if the gods are real, why haven't they punished me? And how can he not feel he hasn't been punished?
I know, as his face is, yeah.
The guilt he feels, it shows that he is remorseful. He doesn't feel that he has been punished enough.
Yeah.
And I think that him saying, why haven't they punished me, that actually parallels Jamie, who keeps asking to be punished.
Yeah.
Also Theon.
And Theon.
Yeah.
But
I think, oh, sorry.
No, I think that it's really interesting because it shows when someone is truly remorseful. Because with Jamie, for instance, he never talked about being punished for what he's done until after his arc with Brienne, after he's able to see the world a little bit more. Theon thought he was all in the right until after he went through horribleness and was able to empathize with his victims. And, you know, after everything that was done to him by Creepy McFucko, he still thinks he should be punished and justice should be served to him. And so Sandor, he's sitting there, you know, he was completely dead. Yeah. And he thinks that, you know, I still need to be punished.
It's like,
really
you're still living, haven't been punished if you're still living.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. That was the perfect response. It's like, how are you sure that this isn't your punishment? Being kept alive is how, you know, how I took it. You're struggling over, baby. That's your punishment.
I'm
sustained
suddenly
him.
thinking of Hamilton as like, dying is easy, my boy. Living is harder.
Mhm.
It's true though.
The hardest thing in this world is to live in it.
Hmm.
Buffy.
So then Septon Ray gives a sermon later, clearly meant for Sandor, it seems. Similar parallel storyline in a way. They were both horrible people who did horrible things. And then we meet three brothers without banners.
I don't dispute that that's who they were, but
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that the show didn't. Did Sandor say that it was them? I couldn't remember if he.
He said the
named
Brotherhood.
He said the
Oh.
Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a bit of a problem because one of the dudes had little wooden towers holding his cloak on. So when they came up, I thought they were Freymen.
Well, but the Brotherhood had all. I mean,
Yeah. They
it
could
was
have just
all-
grabbed.
they didn't make everybody have. They didn't have a uniform.
Yeah.
Not to
uniform.
mention that they probably just stole all sorts of
Stolen.
stuff.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Everything
all.
they have is stolen.
My only issue is that it doesn't feel, and again, this might be coming from the fact that I've read the books, it doesn't feel like the Brotherhood would do that to a bunch of peaceful small folk. I mean, yeah,
Well,
they're following the Lord of Light, but their whole mission statement is that they're there for the small folk.
but there's
Well-
always corruption. I mean,
Oh,
look
yeah.
at. I mean, when Tywin sent out the Mountain to try and keep the peace, look what he did. You know what I mean? Everybody, no matter how good a movement is, there's always going to be corruption. So I thought that was believable completely, if not, ordered by someone higher up. They
We
do have
also
people to feed, and they do have a cause they're trying to forward. So
haven't heard from them in a while, so we don't know what
Yeah.
might have changed about their situation.
and having these faces that didn't look familiar to me might be the way to introduce them with that villainous cast rather than having Thoros or somebody roll up on them.
To Nutty's point, though, I agree in the sense that I think it's intentional that this felt like this is a change from what the Brotherhood did before.
Yeah.
Now that said, I mean, obviously, Sandor has reason to have not been especially impressed with them before, anyway. So,
Yeah.
I think that they kind of, and Chooch, maybe you can tell me better, but I kind of remember them more as like Robin Hood and the Merry Men. They weren't innocent; they stole stuff, but they tried to do right by the common people. Is that how you see it, Chooch, as without having read the books? To this extent?
That was definitely the feel they were going for, and that was definitely the front they were giving. But it seemed like some of it may not have necessarily been sincere at the time, because it seemed like, I don't remember necessarily who were in the conversations, but there was a little bit of ribbing, like, oh, that's what you're doing right. You're liberating, blah, blah, blah. And what this told me is, from those initial conversations where it was kind of on the fence, this is, no, they're really just a bunch of thugs, because they, how many seasons ago, said, oh, to the wall, that's the most important thing ever, and they never showed up.
Right.
They've just been circling the Riverlands, thugging.
Right. And the comment that made us all think of the Lord of Light was the night is dark and full of terrors, but, I mean, if I'm going to go a little further ahead in the story, it wasn't nighttime when they came back. It was full daylight. So it's kind of like, what is them? I mean, I totally get that this doesn't have to be them, but, I mean, they definitely are leading us down that road of thinking that we're going to be seeing those other characters again, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
or maybe this is another offshoot.
There's also kind of a religious purge tone to it, because that's obviously a Lord of Light thing to say, and
Right.
they did not respond in kind.
Right.
Right? And so there might have been an element of, if you had said the right thing when we said that, then maybe we wouldn't have come back to kill you.
I take it as just intimidation,
Well, I think it's that too, primarily. Yeah, my take on the Brotherhood Without Banners was kind of the same thing, in the sense that at least some of them did seem to have, in broadly speaking, good intentions of wanting to protect the small folk and not bow the knee under any particular lord, which may have been the actual primary element of that. And then the idea that they serve the small folk is kind of how they feel good about themselves. But which is not to say that they're not necessarily trying to do that. But I think it's also probably true that the very nature of their organization is going to attract the people who really just do want to thug around. And at some point you kind of say, well, are you turning those people away if they're wanting to fight with you? And then at some point, how strict are you going to be if that particular raiding party comes back with a wagon full of goods and you don't want to ask where they got it? And
Yeah.
it's like, you know, it's easy to see how that could happen, but it's also true, like I said, that you know, obviously the saying the night is dark and full of terrors indicates that the whole, you know, like whether it's just Thoros or whether there's more to it, that the whole Lord of Light religion aspect of it is still part of what's going on there. Which makes sense. I mean, you know, obviously Beric Dondarrion came back from the dead more than once as a result, so you'd think that the people who nearby would have an appreciation for real power going on there, but yeah, I don't know. But so in any case, though, obviously they're intimidating, and that leads to this conversation between Sandor and Rey of just like, well, what do you do about that? And it's sort of the classic idealistic pacifist versus pragmatist conversation.
That's why anymore nowadays, you know, when it comes to television and fantasy, my opinion is always kill them all.
Chop off their heads.
Kill them all. Chop them off.
Burn them.
It is always going to come back to bite you in the ass. There is no repayment for being a good person ever. I mean, don't go out and murder people.
Virtue is supposed to be its own reward.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I mean, obviously in this context, we get relatively immediate confirmation that at least in the show's world, they're not going to be rewarded in this world for for the pacifism. But it's interesting because I feel like where this leads Sandor is that he's changed by this experience and by his contact with Rey, which isn't to say that he comes around completely to what Rey was saying, right? You know, it's I
believe he was really listening, though, don't you?
No,
don't you
totally.
He was, like, really absorbing it?
Yes, no, I agree 100%, and that he's listening and appreciating it, but it's, you know, I mean, I don't want to get into politics, but it's just like how, for example, you can have a candidate say something really valuable about one topic that you really agree with, and you kind of wish you didn't disagree with them on other things, but that doesn't make them wrong about the one, right? And so I think there's an element there with Sandor where he's really feeling like what he took to heart, I think, from what Rey was saying, is the idea that maybe there is a reason for him to be here. Maybe he can find something to do with his life that isn't just wandering around committing random violence or being selfish. You know, like maybe there's something else he can do. And he disagrees with Rey about being, you know, whether violence is just, is it always bad or is it, you know, and so his picking up the axe at the end certainly doesn't seem like he's going to go chop more wood. So,
well, I guess that I was kind of like seeing the parallel with Arya and Jaqen. I feel like he wasn't buying it. He wasn't like going, yeah, sure, pass around the collection cup or let me do whatever and I will plant the seed of the barley or whatever. But when food was ready, he had his defensive hackles up, and that's when they had that conversation, and it was almost as though the Hound felt like he was going to be able to turn away from the fighting and the killing and the murdering and go towards the helping of people, which is what Sept and Rey said at one point, because he just kept there hacking away, and he kept chopping more wood because he said it's going to be a long night, because I guess he expected, like I did, that they would return in the night and that they would have to have fires lit all night. And so he didn't stop until he heard the screaming. So I almost felt like that was him actually doing an act of kindness and being helpful in a way that he might not have done if Septon hadn't said things the way he did. And then had, right as the Septon was saying those things, had the Brotherhood guys show up and really kind of make the Hound have to decide between pacifism and violence right away, with hardly any time to think, it seemed like.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think... I'm not sure if you were... I didn't feel like you were disagreeing with me, so I didn't feel like any of that is in conflict with what I said.
I don't think it was. I wasn't trying to be. I was
just when you started your tone, I was thinking it was a little bit like, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, but so anyway, that's fine. No,
I'm sorry. I was like pondering it. Like, it brought up an interesting thought for me is all.
It would, of course, also be okay if you did want to disagree with a little bit. After all, that was my whole point about how you can agree with someone on some things and not on other things, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it does seem to me like stuff did kind of sink into him, but then he's immediately shown, oh yeah, we're in the real world. I need an axe.
Yeah,
it was kind of heartbreaking.
I think he was kind of hiding from the world and very happy to not have to do anything, and what we saw was as pacifist as Sandor Clegane is ever going to get, because he's still a little bit realistic. We see this, it's like, yeah, he's following, and I think part of him not intermingling with the other people is not so much about people being afraid of him, but him not believing he deserves to be in their company. Like, he doesn't deserve to join them for supper. He doesn't deserve to join them for lunch. And this is more about his guilt. But I think that, the Hound would have stolen everything they had and continued moving on.
Right.
That's what we saw before. Sandor here was helping them and was working for them and wasn't taking advantage. And then he was pushed to it. And picking up that axe, we're gonna see some blood. I'm pretty sure, and I'm pretty happy about it because as Paulette Jackson says in the chat, nuke them from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. And I think that this whole storyline was really well handled, and I'm pretty happy with it. I think that Ian McShane did an outstanding performance. The accent he uses, I don't think is his natural accent, because I think his natural accent is the one he used in Lovejoy, and this doesn't sound like that, although it could have changed. He's a lot older. He's definitely not playing Al Swearingen.
Oh no, this is like a photo negative of Swearingen. That's what I love about it.
I mean, he's still got all the fucks there, but
and he's got the history. He's done the killings. He just doesn't want to know Mo.
It's a whole different character, and it's a fantastic job. And when he's saying that speech, I mean, you're swept up, you're moved, you're like, you know what? I believe that these people would follow this Septon. And kudos on the whole thing.
Yeah. So we had a couple of Q&A comments that were in there earlier that went away, but I remember them. Mike had just pointed out, observing that the title of the episode, Broken Man, was a good one, and I certainly agree there.
Definitely.
Jennifer, though, had a question about suspecting that Ian McShane's character would be back, and not just one episode, but
Maybe.
I mean, it's possible, I guess, but it seems pretty definitive here, so...
Well, I mean, it's they didn't tell us that Jon Snow is coming. I mean, the whole point of this is that we don't know what's going to happen next. I think it's feasible. I mean, why not? There's
Ian
red priests
McShane
everywhere right now. They're everywhere.
Yeah, Ian McShane had said that he only did one episode and he's not coming back, but he could totally lie to people. Like, I can see him doing that.
Non-disclosure agreements exist for that very reason.
I don't disagree that him saying that he was only in one episode is not necessarily definitive. It's certainly a world in which resurrections happen, but just from a storytelling perspective, I don't see any value in bringing him back.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree.
Well, I still see it as a possibility, but yeah, who knows what they'll do.
That would be a jump the shark moment.
What's next, baby?
That would be one resurrection too far.
Oh, but I mean, come on. It would. Maybe we'd get some swear engine on the flip side.
There you go. Well, I thought we would maybe head over to King's Landing and follow the Lannisters for a bit, which we picked them up with Marjorie and the High Sparrow. So Marjorie is apparently, fully on converted. She's reading some scripture and they have some banter, and he makes it clear he wants her to bring Grandma into the fold. And,
See, I'm interested that you describe it that way because I interpreted that scene as, and obviously later we had the other scene, but in this scene I interpreted it as they are playing verbal chess here. It's kind of like, I know that you know that I know that this is a lie, but I'm going to see if I can get you to admit it and that sort of thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think Chooch might have gotten to that. I don't think he finished his intro on that section. Was that what you were going to get to, honey?
No. I mean, no, definitely not that aspect. I like that aspect.
Well, so it's obviously it was subtle. There was no one said anything to give this away exactly. But what I was kind of reacting to was, for example, it's too good. You know what I mean? Like the converted act is too
I agree.
good.
I agree. I concede last week I said she was possibly converted. She's not this week. She's very possibly not converted. And so I take back everything I said. Don't have to convince me.
Well, so even in this scene though, like I wasn't sure. It was more like I was beginning to suspect because first of all, and it wasn't just her, it was also his reaction to her because, for example, she's reading the Book of the Seven like such a good girl. She's got the verse memorized, and then
specifically the mother.
Well, and then that's, of course, when he points out there are people who know every verse backwards and forwards, and yet they don't have the mother's mercy, and yet there are people who, have never read it all, and they know they have all of the Father's wisdom, is I think what he says. But what that's basically saying is that if you think that memorizing the verses is what's going to convince me, you're mistaken.
Yeah.
But at the same time, part of what tipped it for me was not even her, but him, just in the sense that the whole bit about, Tommen says you haven't returned to the marriage bed, and, does not require desire on the part of the woman, just patience. And I was like, that is so creepy that the show tipped its hand. We're not supposed to be remotely sympathetic to him anymore at all.
Yeah, my notes here are more sexist bullshit from the High Sparrow, and it's so much more of the he's clearly playing a power game.
Yeah.
And I know that we've known that for a while, but it's just like it's so on the table. And for I'll get to my assessment of Marjorie later when we finish this up, but it just there's so much, like you said, it's a big tipped hand that this is not about faith. He is the big phony that he keeps talking about.
So, Chooch, when you started, you were saying something about him wanting to get Olenna into the fold. Did you have more you wanted to say about that, or
no?
Was
I mean,
that all you wanted
that
to
was
say
just the literal, basically what he said. This is your mission. We need to bring Grandma into the fold, which leads them into the meeting.
Right.
With her.
Well, going off of that, and also what Christiana and Nutty are saying, it kind of brings me back to a thought that I had on my third viewing. Yes, it takes that many, which was that I think later on we can agree that Marjorie reveals that she's not truly converted, that she's still in there. Like Arya is still in there, Marjorie is still in there, and that, all of the broken people are still in there in one way or another. And like with Theon, it's just like Mike McCauley said, it's the perfect. They've been doing this all season where they've got multiple characters representing the title, and they started with the Hound, but they showed us all of them pretty much, and it was. I'm sorry, I totally spaced out on a whole other tangent. Christiana and Nutty were saying, oh, I know what it was that, do you think now that he was, and Chooch, I'm really curious about your reaction. Do you think that the High Sparrow was actually trying to actively recruit Olenna, or do you think that he was playing a game that would get Marjorie to get her the hell out of King's Landing and off the chessboard?
Yeah, it was clearly, and what she says is going to happen, the extreme punishment for Loras,
right,
stripping Highgarden of their heir, is clearly not going to fly. That's clearly not at all. Elena's not going to be okay with that in any way, shape, or form.
But how deep of a game do you think the High Septon's playing? Do you think he's trying to convert Olenna or get Marjorie to send her away out of fear for safety?
I still suspect that he and Olenna have some kind of a deal going on that's going to be revealed.
High Sparrow and Olenna?
Mm-hmm. And that the note that Marjorie gives her is like the high sign that everything's good on her end. And they're going to essentially double cross the High Sparrow. Because, I mean, right now there's only the City Guard, the Faith Militant, and the Tyrell Army.
Yeah. And the Lannister army that's now with Jaime in the Riverlands.
Well, right. They head off. Right, exactly. So I'm still holding out hope that that Olenna's actually behind a lot of this, and that's going to be a big reveal.
Yeah, that's interesting. And for viewers, this is, again, our non-book reader. This is pure speculation. There's no spoiler. He don't know what's going on. So I'm not ringing the same bell.
Well, none of us do, because this is, I don't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say that this is not something where we have an answer in the books.
I just wanted to be clear for listeners.
Yeah. We have no interaction in the books between any of these characters. Like, none of this has happened. So this is all brand new stuff.
Yeah. Last week, I was more on the side of thinking that maybe Olenna was involved somehow, and this was a way to try to turn it back on Cersei. But I'm thinking that less now. What I kind of took away from this episode is that Olenna really basically got outmaneuvered by underestimating how dumb Cersei was going to be in arming the Faith Militant. And so I think that what the High Sparrow was doing with Marjorie, like that whole first conversation, I think was basically, I know that you know that I think you're a fake. This is a Sparrow talking to Marjorie. It's like, okay, look, we both know what is happening here. But you have no choice but to continue to play this role. And you know it. And so what I'm going to tell you right now is, not only are you going to continue to play the role, but you're going to keep the king happy, and you're going to get your mom or your grandmother out of Dodge so she doesn't start stuff. I don't think he like, obviously, if Olenna could be brought into the fold, that would be great, but I don't think he's optimistic. I think it was much more of the way he said it, again, it's like, I felt like I had rooted against him for a long time, but I felt this scene really tipped him kind of full on into supervillain territory, as opposed to ambiguous guy who seems sincere but has goals different than mine. This is like, no, this is a bad guy. And so he is basically telling Marjorie, you're going to keep playing this role.
You're going to have sex whether you want to or not.
Playing. And you're going to get your grandmother out of town, or basically take care of her, or we will.
Yeah.
And so I think that later when Marjorie is going to talk with Elena, that's the situation she's in, but the sneaked note, which turned out to only be a drawing of a rose, which I think actually kind of speaks even higher to how closely watched she is that she can't even afford to have written anything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But at the same time, what I think she's doing with Elena there is communicating first, not that Elena didn't know, it was like, I am being watched extremely closely and cannot reveal even the slightest hint that I'm not sincerely playing this role. What I need you to do is to get out for your own safety, but know that I am what you think is right. I am not really like this. I am playing the role the way you taught me.
Right.
I've got a plan.
I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I kind of saw it as almost like an ascension for Marjorie to kind of Olena's role. She's saying, I got this, Grandma. You need to go because they're going to hurt you, but I'm the queen. I have to stay here, and I can handle it. And the one thing I forgot to do, though, is to look back at the picture that she hand drew and see if there were thorns on it to signify I'll be the queen, and the rose had thorns on it. That would possibly make Olena feel like a little more
I took
trusting.
It as I'm still a Rose of Highgarden. I'm not.
Yeah,
Sparrow.
that too. That initially,
I'm a Rose.
right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's the initial, I think, goosebumps that I got, anyways.
Yeah. So for up until this episode, I really thought that Marjorie was playing the Sparrow, but now I feel that the Sparrow is playing Marjorie.
Oh, they're a couple layers deep with him, I think.
Like I thought, okay, she's got a plan, she knows what she's doing, but I think she is really trapped, and she's just doing what she has to do to survive, and she's not won over, but at the same time, like, I don't think she's got a plan or in control. I think she's being played.
Absolutely. But I think she maybe also, and maybe Chooch, you can give an opinion. Do you think that she prefers the High Sparrow and the Church to her nemesis as opposed to Cersei? Like, she's got like two different nemesises now, although Cersei is allegedly trying to unite right now against him.
Yeah, I think they're gonna try to play them against the middle, basically, play them off each other, and somehow. Big reveal. It'll work out great for Highgarden.
I don't think. Well, so he's definitely trying to play her, and I don't want to say that she's not trapped because she kind of is, and that's part of the problem. I mean, she wouldn't tell Olena to leave King's Landing otherwise. So I don't want to make it sound like, oh, she's got this, she's under control. But what I think is. He thinks that there's nothing she can do. Because what he can immediately take away from her at the slightest hint of disobedience, she's not willing to lose. And so he basically thinks, I've got you under my thumb completely, there's nothing you can do, so it doesn't even really bother me that I can tell you're faking, because there's nothing you can do about it. And I think she's playing the long game, which isn't to say she has this cohesive plan and he's about to stumble into a trap. I think she is biding her time, looking for something that she can do. But what she wanted to tell Olena was, first, I have to warn you that you've been threatened, and also to basically reveal to her that's like, I am still me inside. You don't have to worry that I've really been converted. I haven't. So I am still trapped, but I am still here.
Right.
It's still me. And so so what I think would be really cool is if it's something to the effect of she is hoping with these sorts of conversations like she had with the High Sparrow at the beginning here, to basically get him overconfident and to hopefully get him to do or say something compromising that she can use against him.
Yep.
And that's what I think she is hoping for. Whether that will be successful in any way, who can say? I think it would be a satisfying story to tell if that's what happens, but hard to say. But like I said, part of what gives me clues there is not any knowledge of what's going to happen, but only just looking at the storytelling of what happens in this episode, which is confirmation that she is just playing. She is just play acting. It's not a real conversion.
Mm-hmm.
And the High Sparrow himself going ahead and fully crossing the line between ambiguous but fanatical to, nope, this is a power play, he is not a nice man.
Yeah.
Which also doesn't incidentally mean that he's not sincere in his religious beliefs. It just means that it reveals him as the ends justified the means kind of guy. So it's not idealistic purity to the principle. It is whatever it takes to get done what I think needs to happen, which is essentially to dismantle all of these power structures that have been working against the little guy. So he may still sincerely believe in those things, but it does not mean that he is unwilling to do bad things in the service of those goals.
Right. Which, of course, is the whole hypocritical thing about trying to be fundamentalist and holding them to account, but still doing underhanded things.
Yeah.
Talk about underhanded. Cersei comes to parley with Elena.
Mm-hmm.
And Elena immediately gives her exact opinion of what she thinks.
I wonder if you're the worst person I've ever met. At a certain age, it's hard to recall. But the truly vile do stand out through the years.
Mm-hmm.
That is the best.
It is. Mike McCauley had earlier in the Q&A called that the epic line of the night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He had also said earlier that he doesn't see this High Sparrow lasting much longer. Jennifer says, I don't think that the Sparrow has seen through her charade, though I might be mistaken. Mm-hmm. The clue that tipped it for me, I shouldn't say tipped it because that implies that I know for sure. I don't. The thing that made me think that he sees through it was specifically the kind of look on his face and the tone of his voice when she turns around all pleased as punch that she's memorized the verse that he was about to quote at her. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, you don't have to read it to me because I already know it. And he's like, knowing the verses doesn't mean that you really have.
That's the easy part.
And so, but like my thinking is that what he's saying there is, I know that just because you're spending time memorizing the verses doesn't mean that you've really converted. But again, this is all subtext. None of that is really made obvious. So it's possible that he hasn't, and I'm reading into it because that's what I want to happen.
Right. Well, that's what we do.
I think
it would be hard to believe that he would be fooled by that change happening so fast and so completely.
Mm-hmm.
And he certainly has enough years of wisdom to keep him from falling for it or changing direction. He would just keep plowing because, the ends are justifying the means. Like I think Christiana said earlier, it's results he wants at this point. I'm sorry, Nutty, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. I was just going to be talking about Cersei and the Queen of Thorns. Like, I love that whole scene, and I love that how it played out because, Elena seemed like she was willing to work with Cersei, and now after meeting with Marjorie, she's like, you know what?
I'm out.
It's worse than I thought. I'm getting out of here.
Mm-hmm.
I can't save my grandkids if I'm dead, and I'm just gonna tell you exactly what I think of you because I'm old.
Yeah,
and I can do that. I love her. But
I think that's part of her reaction. Her reaction, like you just described it, and the things that she said to Cersei. I think that's kind of what really made me think that she understood that Marjorie was kind of taking on her role to kind of watch over her and Loras, and kind of the passing of the mantle, and that was her way of saying, you know what, Marjorie's got this. Peace out, I'm gone. You know, I'm gonna go make sure I got everything at home set up for my girl when she comes back.
Yeah. I want to say though that like even though this doesn't diminish how awesome Queen of Thorns is, because of course she is, or how great that line was, or how awful Cersei was, but when she was acting so high and mighty about all of these horrible things that you've done, Cersei, I was like, hey, Olenna, remember that time that you had her son murdered?
Yeah, poisoned him right in front of her face. Yeah.
You could argue, one could argue, that is worse than anything Cersei has done to you. So, just, you know.
Yeah, or, hey, Olenna, remember that time that you squeezed Cersei out of any political power, which forced her to go to the High Sparrow to try to get political power in any way that she could possibly do it? I mean, we could do the whole it's your fault thing from Into the Woods here.
For her children.
But so but we could do that whole it's your fault circular logic here, and it really was very petty of the Queen of Thorns to just be like, this is all your fault, I don't have to worry about it. It's like, no, it's all your faults. You all contributed to this nightmare, and she's just kind of given up, you know. Which is kind of sad to see, but
it's happening a lot in this show. It happened with, you know, Arya and the House of Black and White, and finding out that they were just assassins for hire, essentially, instead of a really a more important, fulfilling religious order, so to speak, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, a lot of people are definitely feeling disillusioned, and I think that this was another point where, like with the Hound, if things had gone a different way, maybe he would have chosen a more peaceful path. Like when Cersei did her Walk of Atonement, and I argued she really was scraped down to the very core of what she was. And had she not been greeted by Qyburn and the Mountain saying, we're going to get them all back for you, I think there's room for a conversation about maybe her possibly being able to be redeemed, same as the Hound with this, and if Arya had found herself a true religious order instead of an assassin's sect, which is what this is looking like. All these decision points are just making these people, it seemed, go back to things that they had already established and known for themselves. I have to fight for my family, or whatever it is Arya was going to be doing before she got her little fun scene. But it just seems like with Sansa and the North and Jon and fighting for Winterfell and just so many scenes, the characters have been through so much, but then they're coming back after being broken, and they're just stronger, but more the way they were, stronger than they were before, thanks to it, which is something that Cersei later says to Jaime. They broke us, but they've made us stronger for it. Or maybe that was last week.
That was
it wasn't this week. Jennifer clarifies. She's saying when the High Sparrow spoke back to Marjorie, I thought it was rather asserting his higher stance as a religious leader, like a pastor explaining to a nun that she is just a nun and holds no office. You might be right. That wasn't how I took it when I watched it, but we obviously don't know for sure.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mike points out that Olenna dropped the mic and walked off stage. I tend to agree, but I also hope that doesn't mean that we're done with her for the season.
Oh, I hope not.
Also, just to cover it now, Sheriff Bullock says, I'm late. You may have already covered this. I thought Ian McShane was wonderful in his scenes. I only wish we got more of him. It feels criminal to hire an actor of his caliber for one episode. We did, of course, already cover that.
We pretty much all expressed that we wished he was going to be here for more than an episode.
Yeah, and there was even speculation of whether or not it is going to only be one episode. I don't know. But certainly, yeah. So we did cover that already, but you are also right.
And I think none of us are surprised that Sheriff Bullock's opinion of Ian McShane is that he's fantastic.
Right.
Considering he has a whole podcast dedicated to Deborah.
I had a piece of feedback from a listener in the UK, Mark Bailey, or I seem to remember a couple seasons ago. I won't read through the whole thing. Well, I will read the first line. Loving your show this season. Thanks for the audio recaps. I really appreciate them here in the UK.
Aw, yay.
Thank you for thanking us. So he has something that he's been discussing with his friends at work, and it's this theory about Cersei and about her trial. So Cersei still needs to stand trial for her crimes and is going to opt for trial by combat with the Mountain as her champion. So clearly the Faith will need a champion. I like the idea of Tommen being chosen by the High Sparrow to be that champion, leaving Cersei in a bit of a pickle.
Oh my
crap!
That is so different than the theory that I had.
I got goosebumps. Nose. Nose.
I can't help but think.
Who would be the next? Wow, that opens a whole can of worms.
Yeah.
Because who then inherits the throne? Does it go to the Faith or does it go to the next?
Sir Strong can't kill Tommen. Cersei would.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
He is sworn to Cersei. He is not sworn to the king.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That is what I'm saying. Is that Cersei would sacrifice, in my opinion, she would sacrifice the mountain, but I mean, that just broke my brain.
That is an amazing.
Places.
That's an amazing idea.
Yes.
The only thing that leads me to doubt it is just that I feel like even persuaded the way he has seemed to be, I think that would be a bridge too far for Tommen. Yeah. The idea that he's going to fight the mountain against his mother's interests.
Really, really, really wanted it.
Oh my God.
Well, so I don't know. I mean, that's an idea that had never even occurred to me, and just the dramatic implications are amazing. I would be really surprised if that's what happens, just given what I was saying. But that's such a cool idea.
Yeah.
I would think they would have to trick him into it. Basically, I don't know that he would agree to it. And certainly Cersei. Well, I mean, once she claims her champion, I guess she doesn't have any choice anymore, legally speaking.
So Christiana, was your thought that it was going to be Sandor?
Yes. So this is just pure fan speculation.
So this has not been covered in the book at all?
No.
Okay.
And it is 100% based only on wouldn't it be cool if. There's really not even any evidence to suggest it otherwise.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But given Sandor's newfound faith-ish, people were speculating this incidentally before this episode because they expected that Sandor was going to come back. Mm-hmm. But the idea that what if Sandor was the Faith's champion, meaning not only do we get the trial of combat for Cersei, but it's also a meaningful combat between these two brothers who hate each other. And that's, I think, really dramatically interesting too. But what feels a little weird about that is just given where Sandor's left at the end of this episode, it doesn't seem like he's on his way to King's Landing anytime soon. Yeah. And anyone who would have asked him to do this, like, where are they? Like, so what would get him there? And
everybody's in the Riverlands. It sounds like everybody's heading that way.
Yeah, I mean, King's Landing seems to me like the last place he would ever go. He, fuck the Lannisters, fuck the crown. Yeah.
He left. What was it? He left King's Landing, gave up the job, stopped being, the protector of the king because of the Battle of Blackwater. It will literally take fire to chase him back towards King's Landing at this point.
Yep. Mm-hmm. We got more Q&A here. We got Jennifer saying Cersei looked like the guy from American Psycho in that scene.
Yeah.
So that impression might be biased by the promo from the next episode. And then we got the eyes wide smiley. Let's see.
Let's hold off on Sansa and Davos until we get there.
Yeah. Actually, next, I mean, if we keep following with the Lannisters, we next go on to Riverrun.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which we get Bronn coming back.
Yay, Bronn!
Talk about why they're there, and right off the bat, we get just, amazing one-liners from Bronn.
Better instincts than any officer in the Lannister army.
That's like saying I have a bigger cock than anyone in the Unsullied army.
Oh, Bronn.
Yeah. Bronn is great. I'm glad to have Bronn back. We've missed him.
I am reminded of what a great actor Jerome Flynn is, because in the hiatus I watched a new season of Ripper Street dropped on Netflix, and the two characters are so different. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that, I mean, it hasn't been that long since we've seen Braun because he was there in the background and he was kind of like a prop or a straight guy to play these different, like the thing in the cell with the sand snakes and things like that. He was in the background, but this is like the first like real Braun scene that we've had in a while, and you're right, it was just wonderful to have that back again. Nobody can. What was? I made some comment to Chooch about how Jamie is so full of swagger and so confident, and then Braun says two things and just like cuts him down to his knees. It's just he's got this great shorthand to keep him humble and focused, I guess.
Yep.
One thing that's interesting about this whole sequence with Jamie going to River Run is that after having diverged from the book storyline for a long time, like since season 4, being completely off of where the book had him, he is now just like right back where the book had him at this point.
Yeah.
Like it's like they completely reset him right into the book storyline in kind of an astounding way, given how different his intervening time had been. Like never went to Dorne in the books. That wasn't the thing. Basically, this, so the only thing that's really different about where he's at in the books, and I think we touched on this briefly last week, is that when he left King's Landing to go to River Run in the books, he and Cersei had a falling out, and were not happy with each other at all.
And he's still Kingsguard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's different, but otherwise, it was kind of like after all of this season, we spent all of this season with us as the book readers in completely new territory. To suddenly have this storyline show up again is like, oh, this was from book 4.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and it's one of the things that I kind of hoped would happen because they did skip over so much ground. So it's it's one of those things. I know everybody hates it when I go spoiler alert or be careful, but it's one of those things that's kept us from spoiling things that may now actually happen.
Yeah. Although what's interesting, just because of the structure of books 4 and 5, is that although the stuff that we saw tonight was in book 4, we don't actually have much more book story beyond this point. We have a little bit, but not that much.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I just marveled at how like the conversation he has with the Blackfish, which by the way, I'm going to totally fangirl. The Blackfish is back. The Blackfish is back. The whole conversation that he had is like almost exactly the same in the book, which is just so wild. As Christiana said, everything was new, and then it's like, whoa, how? But it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Interesting.
I think the conversation between the Blackfish and Jamie was really interesting because Jamie is still, or it seemed to me like Jamie was talking, okay, this belongs to the Freys, so why don't you just take your guys and move along and I won't hurt you? And Blackfish is like, hold up, I was born here. This is my family's home, and we got food to last 2 years, bitch. We'll talk later. And it was just so beautiful. It was like, this can be a chess game to you. This is my home, and so we're going to stay. And I just thought that was just pure Blackfish.
As long as I'm standing, the war is not over.
Yes. And Chooch, what was the show that we just saw the same actor in? Was it Outlander?
Yeah, we've been watching Outlander on Starz.
Yeah.
Great
and
series.
We have 2 Outlander stars in this particular episode itself of Game of Thrones.
That's right. Edmund, they're both Tullys.
Edmure.
Yeah, is one of the main, really mean main character in Outlander.
Yeah. Oh, slash nice guy.
He's a nice guy slash awful guy.
Yeah.
It's a great show if you're not watching it, but it does have the actors that play the Blackfish as well as the actor that plays Edmure Tully, and they're both excellently cast in both projects, I think. They're just brilliant actors.
Although, it remains to be seen if he'll be given much to do, because certainly he had kind of one significant scene here where he didn't even get to say anything.
Yeah.
we'll see what. I mean, he's still alive, and he's going to get fed and bathed apparently. But I will agree, though, it was kind of startling to see him again, just because I think it's season 3, I guess, was when we last saw him.
We
right?
haven't seen him since the Red Wedding.
Right, and so to have him show up again, especially when that actor has now been recently in another show where he's playing a very different character, it was a little bit like, oh yeah, this guy.
Yeah.
Now,
oh right, he is Catelyn's brother that we've just kind of forgotten existed.
I know. I was like, Chooch, do you recognize that actor? And he was like, nope. And I was like, it's Blackfish. I wonder if he'll have white hair next week or not. And sure enough, his hair was darker than when we saw him on Outlander.
So
the
whole Blackfish thing.
I have a question for Christiana. Correct me if I'm wrong, but do we ever see Edmure again after he's taken at the Frey wedding?
In the books.
What? So, in the books, you mean?
Yeah.
Not until this equivalent scene in book 4.
Okay, so the same thing happens to him there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Good to know.
Yeah, it's very similar. It is two of the Freys basically making empty threats to the Blackfish about, and what we hear in the book too is that like this isn't even the first time that they've done this. They've apparently gone through this little ritual like every day for weeks.
Yeah.
Bringing him up and putting him on the scaffold, saying, "We're going to hang him this time. We mean it today." And Blackfish going.
I love Jamie talking about.
Just get it over with.
He's like, if I tell you I'm going to hit you, what do you think's going to happen? All that gold hand.
Just fucking love it. They're so dumb. I mean, and it shows so clearly in talking with them. And even, like, I took one of my little things is taking pictures for my notes, and, like, a picture of Brendan the Blackfish in his armor, which is very simple, but it's scaled like a fish, and it's black, and you know, you can see all of his guys wear it. It's, and then you've got Jamie and Bronn come riding up, and Jamie's wearing that gold armor with the red accents and the crimson this and the gold that. And then there's the Freys, and they're basically wearing, like, bonnets, black bonnets, and some black underclothing like you'd see at Castle Black. It was just like, I thought it was a great way to point out the difference between the 3 different armies that are there now.
Totally.
On that note, in terms of just the look, we have Paulette in the Q&A saying, best part of this scene, Nikolaj in Lannister armor. Hello, nurse.
Yes.
Also, Jennifer points out that a selected champion can deny being a champion, like Bronn did when Tyrion asked him, and so they don't have to do it just because they're asked.
Yeah, and you couldn't compel a king anyway.
Yeah. So I love that idea from a dramatic perspective, but I don't see how you could get there.
Yeah. So is there anything else we need to talk about in the Riverlands?
I don't think so. I thought we would head up north.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. I asked the question. I did want to comment that I did write as soon as it started. I was like, oh great, Chooch's favorite song. So we can move on.
Which I vowed. I would not be doing that again. Thank you for complaining for me. The talking about how we've been watching Outlander, that there's a similar even theme going through the last couple episodes. So the last episode in Outlander, the main characters are trying to build an army, and they are going to his estranged grandfather to try to get men, who was played by Clive Russell the Blackfish, plays the Outlander's guy's grandpa. So watching this was confusing. They're like, who are they going to go see next? Are they going to? No, John doesn't have a grandfather.
And then you throw in Cal from Orphan Black, who plays Dario Naharis.
Yep.
I give up.
It's great. But
awesome.
So we first come across Jon and Tormund trying to talk the wildlings into fighting with them, along with them. And Jon reminds them pretty clearly, pretty rightly so, everybody else hates you. I'm the only one protecting you here. Like, when I'm gone, you're on your own and you're going to have to fight everybody. So let's do this together now, right?
Yeah, it was a very just pragmatic approach of like, look, I know it's not fair for me to ask you this of you. It wasn't part of the deal. I understand your reservations, but what I just have to be honest with you is, if we lose, they're going to come kill you anyway.
Right.
So if at least you come with us and fight with us, maybe we won't lose.
Yeah.
But if you don't come with us, they're definitely going to come kill you.
I kind of saw it as John setting him up and Tormund knocking him down. John's like, I know this wasn't the deal, and Tormund's like, he died for us, and like, okay, done.
I love Tormund's speech.
Cowards if we don't do the same, you know? That was just brilliant. How can you... Aren't we all kind of crushing on Tormund a little bit at this point?
Oh, he's
except
great.
for Brienne.
Well, I wrote down how much I like Tormund's speech, and why couldn't Brienne have heard that?
Right.
All she got were like goofy eyes from him, and she's like, "Oh God."
Curvy leers and ugh.
Oh man, yeah. And so 1-1 is the deciding factor. He says with one word.
No.
Yep.
It's decided.
And that, to me, replaces the Raven saying snow.
Mm-hmm.
Which we did not get.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, it would have been hard to do that. So
I know it would, but this makes my heart happy.
Are we talking? Is that a book spoiler, Nutty? Are we going to
no,
go around
it's a book bold thing. So
Okay.
when they were doing the election for Jon Snow to become Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, there had been set up prior to that Lord Commander Mormont had a pet raven that would sometimes repeat words like parrot. And just as Jon Snow had technically won the election, but there was a lot of rumbling of like, is this right? He's kind of, I don't know. All of a sudden, the raven shows up and going, snow, snow! And everybody's like, oh, it's an omen. It's like Lord Commander Mormont giving his attention. But there's also some hints that maybe Sam put the raven up to that and kind of manipulated that situation to make that happen.
Because Sam had been teaching it to say snow.
Yeah.
and that was like his whole thing. He was teaching the raven, and it was this whole little great side plot that you couldn't have in the show. And I know we discussed it when it happened, but
yeah,
you know, there's a couple of things that it just stinks.
Yeah. It's a fun detail. That was
1-1 saying snow to me is all of that.
Nice.
So.
Did anybody else, I mean, after we had the wildlings agree, kind of seeing Jon and Sansa and Davos do this kind of like shuffle around like Dany did in season 1, I guess it was. Like it was like an in-person GoFundMe campaign of soldiers where there's kind of like going and giving their spiel.
Where are my ships at? Where are my dragons at? Where are my ships? Where are my dragons? Where are my ships? Well, I guess boats at is what it is.
But I think that okay, so the internet lost its mind over Lady Mormont. Lady Lyanna Mormont. Everyone loves her. It cannot be disputed. It is known. She's amazing. She would already be on the Iron Throne if she made that her goal. She's just beast. She makes things happen. But I think that her scene itself was very compelling because it kind of made me a little sad though. Like so, Jon gave her his spiel, and then Sansa speaks up, but it's Davos who has, for the last however many years, been in the castle with Shireen and speaking to her as a princess. He knows how to speak to a child that's royalty, and he was able to relate to her in a way that he couldn't really explain in other than these terms that he gave her. But I think that the sole reason that they got Mormont was specifically because of Davos's bond with Shireen. I think he really channeled her when he was talking to her because he kept saying, you know, you're the lady, and now, you know, I was just catching crabs, and now I'm speaking to the lady, the lady of a great house, you know, and it was just very, he has that humble thing where John comes in pretty humble, but Lord Commander-ish, he's used to people taking his orders. Sansa's used to Red Landing, and she's used to being, protected, and now she's found her voice again, and that's fantastic, but she just used it in the wrong places in this episode, and I think kind of drove people away from their cause. And it was just, did you guys see it that way? Did you kind of see any Shireen in Davos's eyes when he was talking with Deanna?
Yeah. Totally. I kind of saw the three of them as sort of like a tag team.
Yeah.
This episode, not that anybody did badly, as much as it's sort of each person is a puzzle, and you try to see what combination of words will work.
Right.
So obviously, it was John that was able to persuade the wildlings.
Yeah.
It was Davos that was able to persuade Lyanna Mormont. They failed, all three of them, to persuade Lord Glover.
Yeah.
But of course,
that was going to happen, though.
Yeah. But then we also, one of the things that I thought was really nicely driven home in this episode was to point out that their confidence about people rallying to their side is really kind of misplaced.
Yeah.
Because even the people who are loyal to Robb are like, yeah, and look how well that went.
Yeah.
And then the people who would respect the Night's Watch are going to say, what, you really did lend all those wildlings in, and now you want to bring them further south?
Further south
with weapons? That doesn't like that.
It's a lot like Dany's confidence.
It's exactly.
Right.
Her belief that people will hold up the banners and fight for her side as soon as she lands on Westerosi soil, and the fact that has been said so many times that Westeros has moved on. There are other kings, there are other fights. They're trying to just have food stores for winter, and I think that's exactly what's happening with Sansa in particular. Now that she's able to call herself a Stark again, she's really just damn well using it, and embracing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, during the speech and the convincing and all of that, and I think it's Davos who's talking about how the wildlings are coming, and all of a sudden, he says the dead are coming, and then I realized the Stark's motto is "Winter is coming."
Yes.
Is that what "Winter is coming" means?
That's what I think now.
It's always been about the White Walkers.
That was what I took from it, and I was going to ask you guys that.
Of the shield are white and blue. The White Walkers are white with blue eyes. The dead are coming, like winter is coming, and it comes from north of the Wall, and it's like a game of telephone.
Yeah.
And much like the Seven Kingdoms at the start of the series believed that their enemy was the wildlings. The wildlings is not really the enemy of the Wall. The Wall was not put up to keep men out.
Right.
So anyway, that just was like an explosion in my head.
Bran Three-Eyed Raven's back to Bran the Builder and says, "Hey, you know what your house road should be?"
Nutty, I went. My heart followed the same course yours did. Has this been thrown in our face the whole time, and we just didn't take it that one step beyond what the actual house words were?
I feel like it's like the whole The Walking Dead are the humans. Oh my God, kind of a thing that happened in my head, and I was like, oh, duh, you dummy. But yeah, and just the last bit on Lady Mormont, it's really so there's a lot of different female Mormonts in the books, and I feel like they combined so many of them, and it was really neat to me because in the books we see a lot of kids leading houses because other people die, and in the series so many of those kids have been aged up that we really don't get the gravity of what it would be if a child is actually running a house, and how their whole structure of raising children to be lords and ladies from the very beginning, how it's supposed to work. And here we actually get to see that. That's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
so far, we've only seen kids run kingdoms.
Yeah, with
not houses.
Well, we've seen Joffrey and Tommen with so many adults actually doing the things, and they just kind of wear the crown, and she was like the active. Nina, I don't want any more advice from you. Now I'm talking.
Right.
We did also see Bran briefly leading Winterfell before it was seized by Theon.
So I did have a brief note, and it wasn't tied to anything specific. It was a general question that follows along with you, Nutty. Starks are descended from the first men. Wouldn't the first men be the ones the children were at war with?
Yep.
That's I mean, is that how you remember it, Christiana? I don't know. I don't remember that much of the history, but that's what I recall from it.
Yeah,
I mean, man in general,
right,
or the first men different from man in general?
It gets a little bit complicated because there's the first men and then there's also the Andals. And I don't remember
invading
the whole sequence.
Armies and stuff.
Yeah.
That's
I would assume the first men were the first ones, and yes, the Starks are descendant of the first men. And from what we learned this season, it was men that they had to worry about. Now, was it Andals or was it first men? I don't know. But
meaning the children were worried,
right? Or were first men the men that were turned into the weapon, which became the White Walkers, that were then set against the Andals, or were they set against the first men? I don't know.
So much left for them to reveal. It's like, I know we've only got three more episodes this season, and it just.
Yeah, I mean,
I want more.
I don't know how much we want to dig into it necessarily, but I vaguely recall that the first men were the ones that came and kind of got along with the children and were cool with the old gods and all. And then when the Andals showed up later, they were the ones that brought the religion of the Seven and started burning all the weirwood trees and
cutting down the trees. Yeah.
So I think that's how it went. And so when we saw the conflict, I think it was that. But
Yep.
Interesting. And something that I had not realized until she mentioned it. Oh yeah, Rickon is Lord Stark now. He's the would be the rightful heir to the house. Now
assuming
it sounds
he's
like
not
you're
dead.
saying, assuming he's not dead, and then everybody else is like, the house has already fallen, Starks are gone. Basically, is what they're the feedback they're getting, other than from Lady Mormont.
It's got to be largely just rumor. The idea that he might be alive anyway. Because he was reported dead years previously, and just because Bolton is now saying I have him.
Right.
Although, because we certainly want to acknowledge that the implication and subsequently internet confirmed letter that.
Let's be careful about that. Yeah,
well, I don't want to say. I don't think this is careful. I don't think it's a spoiler. I think it's directly implied that we're supposed to know who she's writing, and I don't think it's a surprise.
I think it's implied. I don't know that we know. I think that they kept
know
that
because the internet confirmed it.
Well, the show didn't confirm it though.
Well, but okay, the show confirmed it by having her write a letter on screen that if you're looking closely enough, you can see what she's writing, and what it says is, I'm writing to Littlefinger to say, you promise to protect me. If you will bring the Knights of the Vale, I will see that you're rewarded.
I dread this letter. I
Well,
feel that this letter is Sansa telling on Ned that we didn't really get in the first book, but yeah, basically telling the plans.
Has any of this happened in the books?
No, none of this happens in the books.
Yeah. The only thing, so the book's finish of this storyline, all we had up through the books was the receipt of the letter from Ramsay up at Castle Black. Yeah. They received that letter, but also Davos was not there, and Jon had not yet died.
And Sansa wasn't there.
So
Sansa was in the
Vale. That Sansa wasn't there. But yeah, so although I don't want to get into this because we're already running long, I heard a theory recently that what if Littlefinger actually wrote that letter and not Ramsay at all? But I don't know that there's any evidence to support that other than it seems like the sort of thing he might do.
I think we covered that when we covered the letter.
Well, maybe
we could have a bunch of them. Yeah.
Anyway, let's not get into that now. But To be sure, I agree with you that the framing of her writing this letter, here's the problem. When she met with Littlefinger and then told him to go away, she didn't tell John.
Yep.
And now she's writing to Littlefinger and still not telling John. That is the problem. If they're really a team, then she needs to be honest with him. And if she's keeping this from him, that's what's going to screw everything up.
Yep. Unrelated to this, I am still getting the vibe that they're going to make Sansa and John get married. I really am getting that vibe.
Oh,
and I don't know why. Yeah. And I
let me
know
add that to my list of I might quit the show if there's only two. That would be one of two remaining now. Oh my god!
What is giving you that vibe? Because I don't get that at all.
I don't know. It's just this weird feeling, and the fact that they replayed that scene for the previously on.
So she's not a Stark anymore. She's either a Lannister, Bolton, and he's a Snow. But they've still got Rickon Stark if they can get him there. And I think that that's the thing that Lady Mormont was rallying around. Where I'm not reading into the two of them getting married, though. Do you mean just to like consolidate the house?
Just to
legitimize both of them.
It creeps me out. I hope they don't do that.
I could see if it did happen. I don't see those two characters consummating.
If it happens, I will declare you a super genius because I don't see it at all.
So it's a weird vibe, it's a weird feeling, and I may be the only person that's thinking that, but it's just.
Maybe you're just you're sensing something between the lines here. Yeah, you might be right. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think using the Knights of the Vale is the right thing to do, but what's going to screw it all up is that Sansa's keeping it a secret so that they can't talk through it and make plans about how to handle Littlefinger when he shows up.
Yeah, they're just going to show up and Jon's going to be like, hi. And then something's going to come out, right? Like, Sansa, you sent for me?
Right. So, yeah. So, Chooch, when you saw it, I wanted to ask who... Did you immediately assume that it was Baelish, or did you assume that she was...
Absolutely.
Did you think maybe she's writing to Riverrun, maybe she's writing anywhere else?
Immediately, pretty clear. She's sending a DM to Peter. Yep.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I mean, because she's sending Brienne out to Riverrun, so...
Yeah.
To try to get that army, but
looks like next week we'll get her showing up at Riverrun. That's going to be awkward.
Very awkward, yeah.
So do we want to talk about Arya or Yara next? Yara and Theon.
Yara, I think.
That's that's a little quicker. It's just the one scene, and it's not that long.
Volantis, right?
I believe that's correct.
Yes, they're in Volantis.
Yeah, they didn't say out loud, but that's where it is.
I seem to remember that from Tyrion being there in that brothel with the Dany impersonator.
At the risk of sending us on another tangent, whenever we see these maps of Westeros and Essos, is this a round planet? Because the Iron Islands are on the east.
I don't think that's ever been addressed. Did anyone?
Can they sail west and come to the eastern side of Essos?
I've never seen anything other than the book map.
You know, that's a question I never asked myself. Like, I just assumed that they had to go around.
Yeah, I asked PG before the show started if there was any connectors around anything, and he didn't know of anything either that showed the complete world and how that strip of land...
It's a ring world.
So
right?
I don't want to derail us too much on that because honestly it doesn't matter really.
If anyone has read the big encyclopedia and knows, please tell us. What's it called? World of Ice and Fire.
I actually have it, but I've not read the whole thing.
I have it myself, and I don't remember that from there. But I'm not read the entire thing.
Gotcha.
I've just mostly been skimming through, like, ooh, look at that, ooh, look at that.
It really doesn't matter ultimately.
No.
Right.
I really did like Yara's Ironborn pep talk. Reinforced drink. I thought it was cool. It was kind of a bring him back to his roots. I need the real Theon.
It was, I will never hurt you. I will keep you safe. I won't tease you about that anymore. We're going to go and get the Iron Islands back. Drink, drink, drink. I need you. And I think that was the only person, I think that was the only way that anyone could have gotten him really to look like he's got that spark back in his eyes again.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll surface.
I'll give it that, it's felt in character, and maybe it's going to work from a dramatic perspective, but I just cringed that her advice was basically, look, I know you're sad because some bad stuff happened to you. What you need to do is drink more, and if you don't think you can get better right away, then just kill yourself.
Yeah.
Well,
that's what she said to him.
That's what she said to him. That's exactly what she said to a man that's been held prisoner, had his penis sliced off, had bits of his body removed, watched people get eaten by dogs, and watched Sansa get. He has seen so much. It takes that ripping off some of the flesh with the Band-Aid to get through all of that pain. You don't think that that's going to take that dramatic?
I think in the story it's going to work. I think in real life the person would kill themselves.
I think that I think it was the only way post Ramsay Bolton, and all of the things that Ramsay is capable of, and all the things that Theon fought his way out of, and the strength that he showed in doing that, leaping over the side with Sansa, taking off and going to the Iron Islands once she's taken care of, following his sister and being at her side like he says. All of those things show that he has that honor and loyalty within him, and she doesn't really know much of him, except for when they were back kids, brother and sister running around. And I think that she really tapped into, I mean, they're Ironborn, when their uncle comes into town and says, yeah, I killed the king. I paid the iron price. I think this is the brutal life, and I think that, yes, she went really, really far, and yes, I think there are people that would have killed themselves, but I think that she was saying was to either stand up and be yourself or give up. You can't just keep being this little puppet in the middle that's kind of squishy and sad. I need you at my side as you, not this thing that Ramsay turned you into.
I understand all of that. I agree it's completely in character and in keeping with the culture they're from. I think it is terrible advice.
Really? So, well, yeah, they show rape too. That's terrible advice as well.
I think it's different. That's different. I think the story is going to justify. The story is going to justify that this is what worked to get him to come out of his funk. When I think that it is not how emotional trauma actually works.
No. I mean, anybody else but Theon, I don't think it would have worked. Anybody but Theon and what he'd been through.
I'm not arguing that in the story it's going to work in context. Right. I just wanted to acknowledge that that is terrible advice, and I just wanted to say that. And so I'm not saying that it didn't make sense in context.
No. Heard.
And I was extra disappointed because given the setting of the scene and what immediately preceded it, including Yara getting it on with a lady, I thought and hoped that what it was going to be is, hey, little brother, I know you're bummed about what happened down there, but look, that does not mean you have to be this shell of a person. And in fact, let's show that maybe you can actually find some way to actually still like this. You do not have to be forever alone and a crippled freak just because this happens to you. So let's get one of these lovely ladies who's going to be paid well to put up with you and feel like, let's see if there's something that can still be fun here.
If I may add on to that, just because you don't have a penis doesn't mean you're not a man.
Yeah.
And that's, I totally get that. I, too, cringed at the advice, but mostly from, like, real-life stories of people doing that and it going badly. But what I took away from all of this, because as she's talking to him, we're focused on his face.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing how upset it's making him. And it made me realize that Alfie Allen is a much better actor than he gets credit for. I mean, it's not just doing the torture scenes. It's stuff like this, showing full range of emotion. And you can see him processing everything. And so I just want to give a kudos to Alfie Allen here because I think he did a fantastic job.
And I think he may have had the line of the episode actually saying bad years.
Bad years.
Yeah. So Yeah, I mean, I'm going to agree 100% that he's a great actor. If I looked surprised or confused, it was only because I was thinking, like, does anybody not know that he's a great actor? I kind of thought everybody kind of got that.
I don't think he gets the credit that he is due. I think like people talked about how great Jack Gleason was, and I don't know. Like, I think that perhaps being in Game of Thrones has helped him grow as an actor. But it's just really great to see, and when you think that he's the guy that song was written about, and what he's been able to do with his life and what he can give to a role, I'm very impressed.
Yeah. Whoops, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say we did have a thing in the chat from Tibby saying that there was something in the books about someone mentioning about no one ever returning when they sailed around. So basically,
right on. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, there's a whole southern continent that people don't know much about either.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Aria.
Wow.
One last thing.
You know
Sorry.
about Bravo.
Just one last thing. So, seeing Yara with a woman, I was like, oh, yay, they kept her bisexual. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, no, my memory was wrong. Asha, who's the character in the books, was never with a woman. But in my head, I guess, I don't know, wishful hoping or whatever, I always read her as bisexual. And so, I don't know that she is bisexual in the show because so far we've only seen her with women. But yay!
I bought it immediately in context.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, actually, I was exchanging some tweets earlier today about this scene with Molly Astertag, who is the author of the Strong Female Protagonist webcomic, which is amazing. People should be reading that if they aren't already. But anyway, we were talking about our mutual hopes that Yara should go marry Danny, and then Theon would have both Grey Worm and Varys to be eunuch role models to show him that his life doesn't have to be over.
I like that. That's a fun fan fiction.
Maybe that's what'll happen. We don't know.
Yeah.
And then they'll all live in a White House on a hill, and they'll be neighbors with Sandor and Sansa.
Totally. I don't see it going any other way.
Surrounded by little birds and spiders.
Right. But yeah, that's all I have about
Bravos. So we find out, where's Arya going to go? She's going to go to Westeros. And for some reason completely lets her guard down and gazes over a bridge, and that was just stupid.
I think we should be careful of speculation and spoilers and people's reporting, and probably stick. I would like to hear Chooch's point of view on this.
This was stupid. It was absolutely stupid. There was no reason in my mind her guard would be completely down and she would have just secured her little cabin and then just, let's look at the bridge, let's look at the city one last time, and, oh, hello, who are you? It's bullshit.
Okay.
It was stupid.
So as a non-book reader, and I don't know where the hell the books are on this point, but
none of this is in the books.
None of this is in the books, so this is all pure speculation.
Yes, there's
I think
no clues at all.
She's still blind, right?
No. No. In the books, she got.
Oh, in the books. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So did she get her sight back in the books at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. You're right. She did.
So are we kind of like continuing the possibility from last week that she's working with the theater troupe and has props and is putting on a big show?
I think that there are several fascinating theories, and again, these are not spoilery. This is all just speculation, fan made up nonsense. But there's clues in there, and so my first reaction was exactly like Chooch's. Is like, what? How did she get taken off guard like that? It's almost suspiciously stupid.
Yes.
Theatrically.
And so there are two big theories. In addition, so the one that you just mentioned, Viv, that this was a ploy and that somehow she's got props or everything. Like, I think that's possible. The only thing that makes me hesitate there is just I'm not sure how you could use props to protect against someone actually trying to stab you in the stomach.
Right.
You know, just like
the way you should know
Right.
Sorry, the waif should know what it feels like to stab.
I'm just saying there may be some theater trick that she used. That's one of the few ways that I can process the fact that she's going to keep walking after the way the waif stabbed her. Red Wedding style.
100%. I agree, and I like that theory. I'm not shooting it down. I'm only just going to raise some additional theories as well because we don't really know. It might actually just turn out that it's just as dumb as it seems, and that she just really got taken off guard. I hope that's not true because that's dumb. But so here's two other theories. One is the Fight Club theory. The waif is not real. The waif is in Arya's head. And so here's an example of that. Remember that a lot of her training, remember when she was blind and she's sitting on the street and she had the waif would come up and basically hit her with sticks. And there's actually a long shot where it's supposed to be like, oh, the waif has disappeared. But what we see is just Arya all by herself swinging the stick around like a crazy person.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And also there are a lot of scenes where when Arya and the waif are both in the room, Jaqen only talks to Arya.
What about the Jaqen and waif scenes that we've had?
Well, so what that could mean
that's her mind?
Yeah, it is. Arya is completely in waif mode when that's happening. Again, I'm not saying that this is all perfectly worked out. It's just a theory.
Right. It's interesting.
Yeah. I thought that was a really cool theory, and so the idea that what that might mean is that the stabs, like she might be okay because the stabs are kind of like metaphorical because it's not really another person stabbing her or something like that, but it's like the sort of the two parts of her, the girl, the one that is really a girl who has no name, warring inside Arya's head, and so I kind of like that.
Gotcha.
But here's the other theory that I heard. It's not Arya at all. It's Jaqen wearing
I hope so.
face. Because and the clues for this are, first of all, the idea that it seems dumb that she is so, like nonchalant, seemingly let her guard down. When I have to stand up and do this for the video. When she's walking around like this.
Yes.
She's going and booking the cabin and she's on the bridge. That's how Jaqen walks.
Oh, that's true.
Like that.
I saw it as more of a theatrical thing, like, look, I'm unarmed and I'm defenseless, but I totally
did too. I didn't pick any of these theories out. They were all suggested to me, so I read about them. I didn't get any of these on my own.
I had the waif isn't real idea several episodes ago, and then I was like, oh, she talked to Jaqen, so that I discounted it, but it still holds water.
Yeah.
So it blows out my theories before that there's actually like a group of faceless people that inhabit Jaqen and the waif and take turns doing so, where it really seems that the waif, the last 2 episodes or 3 episodes, that she really does have it out for Arya, that she really does plain hate her, that it's not just a bad cop thing.
So there's 2 more.
So that makes her not just a girl too, though, because that means that she has desires and vengefulness, which should make her go on the list too, I think.
Well, so there's just a couple more pieces of evidence for that last theory.
Okay.
One is the idea that, remember when he told the waif to go ahead and do it, he specifically said, "Do it fast, don't let her suffer."
Right.
So the idea might be that this is a test for the waif.
Yeah.
Who failed because she stabbed in the gut, which was clearly not. It was deliberate suffering, right?
Yeah.
Which would be a no-no for their whole philosophy. So that might be part of it too. But the last theory that we have to remember is, and this actually only works in the show because it's different of how the House of Black and White is different from the books. But remember how Jaqen and Arya met.
Mm-hmm.
He promised her 3 lives.
Right.
He took 2 and then gave his name as the 3rd. Yep. And he basically bargained to say, you gave a man his own name, well, okay, we're going to have to work out this thing. So, like, I'll give you this coin, you can come and help me. But technically, he still owes her that death. The god demands death, and there wasn't one. And so this could be him finally giving it to her. by allowing the waif to fail her own test and giving him his own life. And so that could mean that it's Jaqen disguised as Arya that happens to. But again, like, all of this is theories that I love, and I love all of those explanations better than the idea that Arya was just dumb and let herself get caught off guard.
And he got killed when she didn't kill the guy with the oysters too, right? There was still a life that needed to be taken.
Well,
Isn't that what he didn't?
That gets confusing too, because it goes into what you were saying too, that it's like, is it really always the same guy? Is Jaqen the same guy? I don't know. It's hard. All of this is theories. It doesn't explain everything.
So another theory is that she made herself into a target so that she could fake her own death.
Right.
And she's really stabbed, but that's how far she had to go.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not think Arya is going anywhere.
Yeah.
Or if she is, there's also red priests around there, so why not resurrect her ass too? Everybody else is doing it.
If it really is Arya and Arya is actually stabbed, I think she goes to the theater troupe for help. Because I don't think we're done with them.
I agree.
But
I mean, they got Richard E. Grant. I love that man. He's so good. I'm so glad they have him for the theater troupe.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be a bit surprised if, because of those various theories we mentioned, I feel like the one where it was actually Jaqen in disguise seems most right to me.
Right, yeah.
It's kind of thematically in keeping. It ties back to several earlier things. It resolves the idea of dealing with the waif who's been set up as an antagonist, and finding a way to deal with her in the sense that, now she's failed a test, and so if Jaqen is gone, then it's like Arya gets to kill her in revenge on her way out. And I don't know, so I like the idea of that, but it's still obviously all awesome.
I guess I'm kind of hoping that after all this, Arya's going to be okay with not getting all the names crossed off her list. She's been surrounded by death, and I think that I hope that she grows beyond the need for that revenge, and she can just,
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I liked about the scene with Lady Crane portraying Cersei, is that, like I said before, I think that she may have given her some softer sympathy feelings towards Cersei and what she lost.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we have next? Ratings, or did we have another zone to cover?
Yeah, that's the whole episode.
Q&A things.
Oh, yes,
So
please.
Mike was saying that he agreed with Chooch, and he was very upset at the chumpish nature that Arya had. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. And I think, where is it? And Sheriff Bullock is very scared for Arya.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I gasped when that happened, because that was not getting as the Hollywood graze on the arm injury.
Yeah.
That was like slash, stab, twist.
Yeah, that was like what I was saying. It's like the Red Wedding stab. It was
and then immediately jumping into a filthy canal. No one comes back from that without magic.
Yes. I did see one article that said that I hear that they have the best triage centers in all the world right up there down the street.
Honestly, even with modern medicine, it's not obvious that they would be able to save someone from that injury.
Nope. Agreed.
She would require emergency surgery probably within an hour.
She'd need Qyburn.
Right.
So, we have ratings, and Viv, this might be asking too much. You don't happen to know what you would have rated the Hold the Door episode, do you?
Was I on that recording?
You were, but you left
early. You had to drop out.
Oh, I can check my notes real quick if you want to get everybody else's ratings.
So, ratings for this episode?
Ratings for this episode. I would like to give this episode... What? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I would like to give this episode 6,400 out of 8,000 Lannister soldiers.
Hang on. 6,400.
64 over 80.
out of 8,000.
Such a shit.
Hang on.
You are such a shit. Why are you making her get out a calculator?
No, I got it.
Guess we haven't done it this season.
You turd.
And I probably did the math wrong.
All right, so you gave that an 8 out of 10. So that's an 80%.
It's supposed to be just 8, but yeah.
Oh my
So I did the
God.
math wrong.
Jesus. Well, I know Nutty did it right, so it looks like you're giving it 8.8.
No, I said it was an
I
8.
could live with that.
It was a solid 8.
The solid 8.
Yeah. 80%. So sorry if I stuttered a little. I can make it confusing when I stutter. I do stutter sometimes, so I can confuse people when I do that.
Who
Christiana?
else has a rating?
The Book of the Stranger, Chapter 8, Verse 10.
Okay.
Nice.
Damn.
That is good. I was not sure where I was going to go on this. I was vacillating between 6 to 8. Anywhere from like 6 to 9 out of 10. I think I'm going to have to go. I'll agree with you guys and go with 8 out of 10 treachery letters.
Well, I'm not quick enough to think of any like cute thing to say about it, but I did not mention the cinematography for this episode, which to me was almost like another character in the last 2 episodes particularly, but there were some absolutely stunning shots. So I'm adding, if I were to agree with you guys on absolutely everything else on execution and stuff, I'm going to add an extra point for the cinematography. So that'll bring it up to a 9. And I think, honestly, the casting choices that they did and the execution of the scenes and giving us what they did and teasing us with what they didn't, I'm going to fucking give it 10 out of 10.
Oh, okay then.
Nice. Wow.
You know what?
It would have been a 9 it would have been a 9, but the cinematography, I kept having to pause and just go, look at that, so beautiful. They really are. We're getting that big bang for the buck that we didn't get in the first couple of seasons. It's just stunning.
I will also just briefly say that last week I gave a rating and said I was prepared to adjust it depending on how things played out, but given that we got closure on none of the things that I was annoyed with, I am not adjusting my score.
I knew it. I thought that was just like real big, hopeful, wishful thinking.
Well, because all of it was about, I want to see how these various uncompleted plot threads pay off, and none of them paid off.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I didn't get it's a part 1 of 2.
Well, I think that was wishful thinking, is like.
Well, it kind of makes sense though, the way books 3 and 4 were written. It kind of makes sense. They play with the timeline. It didn't work out this time. It's okay.
The reason I thought that was because the same guy wrote and directed the last episode and this one.
Right.
And so that made it seem to me like there was going to be a little bit of a part 1, part 2 thing, but it doesn't seem like that.
Was not to be.
I did not give. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, Chooch. What did you say?
I just said it was not to be. So.
Yeah. So I'm skimming my notes from episode 5, which is the Hold the Door episode, and I don't have a rating for it. But skimming through my notes, it's clear to see that I freaking was soul raped, loved it. There was a lot that was covered, and I think the execution was amazing. The Hodor scene, that final 3 minutes will haunt me to the end of my days, forever and ever and ever, as one of the most traumatizing things I've seen on screen. So I have to give that.
Wait. Hold the score.
What?
Hold the score.
Hold score. Hold score.
Hold score.
And I fell for it. You're so mean.
I'm sorry.
Hold score.
Hold score.
No, I think the execution was haunting and deliberate and masterful. So I give that episode 5 10 out of 10. Sorry if I'm blowing the curve, guys. I am passionate. I could not love it more.
I glitched out a little bit, but I did get that score. So now our cumulative rating for The Door, which really should be Hold the Door, is a 9.3 out of 10 instead of a 9 out of 10. So very nice. And Viv, your impassioned discussion of tonight's episode actually made me change my rating to 8.5. The extra 0.5 is simply for Ian McShane. So for tonight's episode, we have a cumulative score of 8.6.
I still don't know what the fuck show you guys are watching because it's a 10 all across the board, but I love it. I guess that's why we're a good combo.
Well, it's really a 9.8.6.
Yeah. Well, I'm for the scale, you know what I mean? It's like I can't make them all 9 or 10s. It's like or we're not judging it against other shows. We're judging it against other episodes of this show.
And I tried that. Remember there was a season where I said the starting is 9. The very minimum an episode could be is 9, and the decimal will be like the variable, and they all end up being.
And Sheriff Bullock had said that he rates this episode a 9 out of 10 wasted McShanes. So he's leaning more towards you.
Yeah.
I don't think there were any other ratings.
I saw another one, but it looks like whoever it was took it back off, so I don't remember what it was.
Did we have any feedback?
Takes backsies. There was the one I read during the thing. So last episode I had said I would check iTunes because I had forgotten to check if there were new reviews. That we've had some more ratings. We have an excellent rating. Thank you very much, everybody. But we do not have any more iTunes reviews at all, so I don't have anything to read. So people
you want to break
can
that down? Like people are able to star it, and then we can't identify who they are, so we can't give them credit for an entry in the contest as part of it.
That's very true. Yeah, when somebody just does a star, Apple doesn't give us any way to see that. And it makes sense. They don't want you to know who rated who, whatever. So I misspoke when I said if you give us, ratings, that you would be entered into the contest because I don't have any way to enter you in there. So that was totally my bad. I totally screwed that up.
But we thank you very much.
Yeah. If you leave an actual review, though, we will count that and we will give you a bonus 5 entries into our contest for the $50 gift card. Because reviews have names and reviews we can see. But also feedback, share out the episodes, give us the email feedback like Mark did, and join our live Q&A. Like I said, the iTunes page is at bit.ly/BTW podcast, bit.ly/BTW podcast. Takes you directly to our current iTunes page. And also, I updated the specficmedia.com/BTW. We have a list of feeds there, so that gives the list of direct links to YouTube to see the video episodes, direct feed links for iTunes, and the new Android client. So Android or Google Play Music now has full podcasting support, and we are in that directory as well. So if you are an Android type person and you're trying that out, you can subscribe to us there, you can rate us and all that kind of stuff. And of course, you could always subscribe to our regular RSS feeds with any other podcatcher you use. Those will keep on working just fine.
And if I may, if you're in another country outside the United States, please let us know if you leave a review because we can't always track them all.
Oh my God, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Nutty.
It's a very big contention for podcasters being able to check all the different reviews. There have been tools out there, and every time you subscribe to one, it ends up breaking or not working anymore. And so the only way that you can do is if you know the specific code to write in, and then you have to go and check each country individually, and it's insane and impossible. So far, I have checked Australia, I have checked Great Britain, and I have checked Canada. We only have reviews for the U.S., so if you want to get to be first in your country, you can, but please send us an email so that we know, so that we can give you 5 entries into the contest.
Yeah, something as simple as a screen capture.
Or just tell us and we can find it.
Excellent. So that does it for us. That's another episode. Episode 7's done. We've got, what, 8, 9, 10? Gosh.
I know, it's crazy.
Stop counting. Stop counting.
And they haven't missed any weeks. Like, usually there'll be a miss or something.
Yeah, I feel like there was usually a week skipped.
This is the first season that they didn't skip a week.
I feel like we're
Ludicrous speed.
closer to the end than we actually are because so much has happened this season.
Really,
Ludicrous
really
speed.
lots.
I
Really
keep thinking
lots.
like, is this the 8th episode? Is this the 9th? Oh no, it's only the 7th.
I know. They've
See,
really.
I was the reverse. I would feel like it just doesn't seem right that we're almost at the end. I keep thinking it's more like 4 or 5.
So much has happened. It's
Wow.
great. So do we
Yeah.
want the name of next week's
Oh yeah,
episode?
please, yeah.
Oh shoot, I just had it open. Hang on 1 second. I'm trying to make things faster. Oh, I know what it is. I remember now. It's No One. Yes.
See, that sounds like a lot more business to do with Arya and all of that.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of. I mean, we might see some character development with Theon coming back from being No One too.
I hope that it, much like this episode, the title can apply to many people.
I'm sure it will. That's their thing. In a surprising way, I think they're able to really incorporate a whole bunch of different people with. It's just really, it's masterful. I can't love this season more. It's so good. I know I say that a lot. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's all
Well,
right.
I can't wait till next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern to talk about it with you, which is where everybody can tune in. And yeah, we'll talk to you then. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
If you have feedback for the Beyond the Wall podcast, you can email us at btw@specficmedia.com. You can also leave us a comment on the website. Go to specficmedia.com where you'll find a shiny BTW button. That'll take you right to our page. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 3.0 Unported license. Feel free to share and remix. Just give us credit and don't charge money for it.
I still have to hit the stop broadcast button, don't I?